Chapter 7, Part 2 on proteins. We're going to focus on vegetarian diets, different types of protein inadequacies, a little bit of food allergies, and then how to purchase, or just some recommendations on purchasing proteins and what to look for. So remember in part 1, we spoke on how meat sources are one of the best sources for complete proteins, but not everyone, number one, can eat meat or chooses to eat meat or animal products. So that gives us vegetarianism. There are multiple types of vegetarianism. Okay. And this is not an inclusive list. There again, in clinical practice, I would see all different kinds. um, so a lot of it sometimes is a food choice. But these are the main types that you'll see. Semi-vegetarian, or what we call the flexitarians here, occasionally will eat different types of animal flesh. Like these are your people who will eat chicken, but not beef or pork type thing. Your lacto-ovo vegetarians, they will eat milk and milk products, thus the term lacto, but they will not eat any muscle meat. Then you have your ovo vegetarians, they will eat eggs, okay, but no other animal product. Your lacto-ovo vegetarians, they will eat both milk and eggs, but no other animal product. Your pescatarians, they will eat fish and shellfish, but no other animal products. And then your most restrictive are your vegans, where they will not eat any animal products. So not butter, not eggs, not milk, or anything made from animal products or animal byproducts. That then in turn leads us to how do you plan for how do you plan for these meals? It's getting a lot better now. You see, there's a lot of commercially prepared vegetarian foods out there now. You still have to watch out for that because obviously they are a processed food. Many restaurants now are offering vegetarian options, and the benefits of vegetarianism can be very good. They are obviously low in fat, saturated fat, cholesterol, high in vitamin C, beta carotene, fiber, potassium, all of those wonderful vitamins and minerals, which we'll talk more about in the next couple of chapters. But and it can be cheaper as well because meat's expensive or protein is expensive. But there are some possible disadvantages. So obviously you're going to be low in the omega-3 fatty acids, certain essential amino acids if you don't mix your incomplete proteins correctly. And it can be especially hard for children, pregnant or breastfeeding women, and certain teenagers. Okay. Special considerations do need to be taken into effect with children, teens, and females who are pregnant or can become pregnant or who are breastfeeding, just to make sure that they are getting that complementary combination of foods that we spoke about earlier. You may also have heard of the trend now, and I don't really want to call it a trend. I mean, it is now ensconced in the new dietary guidelines for Americans, increasing protein. You see that everything from yogurt to Jello to butter to cereals, protein bars are having protein added to them. And why would that be? Okay. The reason why is because protein does increase satiety. So it makes people feel fuller, longer. When a meal has protein, when a meal has fiber and fat, it's going to slow down that absorption of carbohydrate. Okay, so it can help promote more stable blood glucose metabolism. And These high protein weight loss diets out there, such as keto and Atkins and paleo and those kind of things, do work in promoting weight loss because, especially keto, you are changing the body's fuel. You're going from being a carbohydrate burner into being a fat burner. So it can promote weight loss that way. And but the disadvantages of that, which there's disadvantages to everything, all right, but it can be difficult for people to maintain long term, as we spoke about earlier in the carbohydrate chapter. Carbs are addicting, right? I mean, sugar is very addicting and very craving. You never hear of anybody overeating on a steak, but you do hear of people binging on potato chips and candy bars. Okay. So it can be difficult, but does not mean you can't do it. Also, it's these high protein diets may not be for everyone. There can be, or there is, certain foods that are rich in protein that can be very high in purines that can lead to gout and high uric acid, which can possibly contribute to kidney stones. And there again, remember, we talked about earlier, you have to have proper kidney function in order to get rid of that amine group, to get rid of that nitrogen, to get rid of the urea out of the bloodstream to maintain that blood pH balance. And so you need proper kidneys. You need your kidneys to be filtering at the right rate in order to sustain a high protein diet. Not everyone can sustain a normal protein diet. This is uncommon in the United States, but we do see it sometimes worldwide. We have two particular protein malnutrition diseases, protein energy malnutrition diseases, in the form of marasmus or kwashiorkor. This first one here is marasmus. This is what we know as um, starvation. This is where the person has inadequate calorie intake as well as inappropriate protein intake. So known as wasting, severe starvation. Okay. Marasmus, where it is the wasting due to not enough calories, not enough protein. Okay. So it's a combination of low energy and low protein. Whereas kwashiorkor here, this is where the patient has or sufficient calories, okay, meaning they're getting carbohydrates, but they're not getting protein. They're getting enough energy, but they're getting insufficient quality protein. And you see how that shows itself with this inadequate fluid balance. Okay. In kwashiorkor, this undernutrition causes edema, stunted growth. So you see the swelling here of the abdominal cavity. You see the pitting edema here in the lower extremities. And it mainly occurs in infants and young children that you see here. Okay. Especially that break between breastfeeding and getting put on normal foods. There again, you don't usually see this a lot in the United States. Also, not everyone can eat proteins or certain types of proteins due to food allergies. So, allergies are an inflammatory response that results here when the body's immune system begins attacking itself, and uh, it can vary from person to person to what they're allergic to. Some people are allergic to cow's milk or eggs or peanuts or soybeans or sesame or tree nuts. Um, and and that the signs and symptoms can vary. And the signs and symptoms can vary as well. It can be severe, as in anaphylactic shock, okay, where the throat begins to swell up and can block the airway from breathing. Or it can be as simple as you get a little itchy, okay, slight hives, okay. You want to take allergies serious, especially the severe ones that may require an EpiPen. And where do we find these allergens on the food label? So they will be below the ingredient list. Okay. You also see reading through the ingredient list is fine, but the food labeling laws make it simple here by listing allergens. Okay. Wheat, soy, dairy, it'll list saying that it contains those foods. There are also certain diseases that affect the absorption of proteins, and the first one here is what we call celiac disease. This is a somewhat inherited condition where people cannot um, eat gluten, which is a protein found in wheat and barley and rye. So gluten is broken down into these particular proteins, and this one can be a hard one. Okay, it's a hard one. Whenever in clinical practice I would get someone with celiac disease, I would refer them to a dietitian that was a specialist in this because it is can be mm, can be managed, but can be very difficult depending on how severe. There's also what's known as fetal ketonuria. This is a rare genetic metabolic disorder where they lack that enzyme to convert the amino acid phenylalanine into the compound. So you have phenylketonuria here, phenylalanine, ketones, and then urea, okay, meaning urine. This is a simple blood test that they do in newborns if it's suspected, and it is possible to avoid the complications from this as long as you avoid phenylalanine food products, okay, and avoiding certain foods. In adulthood, the main artificial sweetener, aspartame, contains phenylalanine. So you people with PKU need to really watch out for that. That's usually one of the more commons. We talked about some sweeteners back in the carbohydrate unit. And then we have nutritional genomics here. Nutritional genomics investigates complex interactions among gene functioning, dietary choices, and the environment. This is a fairly new field. So you have nutrigenetics, the study of how a person's genes make up how they respond to food. And it's a fairly new field, kind of interesting if you want to dive into that. Quite interesting to read about that. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about how we can save, or not really save money, but what to really look for when you are shopping for food. And there again, notice how um, processing, you pay for that extra processing, you pay for that extra handling. So in order to save money when you go to buy proteins, because remember, proteins are the most expensive food category you will spend money on. Meats cost a lot of money. So, and also the more prepared the food is when you buy it, the more expensive it's going to be. You see here the difference between buying a fully cooked rotisserie chicken compared to an uncooked chicken. You see the convenience of having and buying boneless, skinless chicken breasts compared to cutting up a whole chicken on your own and using all the pieces, okay, or just getting the raw chicken whole breast there, skinning it yourself, cutting it off of the bone yourself. So, something to remember when you do go to shop, learn how to prepare the food yourself instead of buying it instantly made. Learn how to cut your chicken and cut your meat and cut your choices of meat by hand to kind of save you a little bit of money that way, if possible. And as always, look for seasonal foods, compare unit costs. There again, you're paying for that extra convenience. So, here's a very good example. You're paying 4 times the amount for buying the apples already cut up and into this bag with added preservatives than you would if you just bought the whole apple and cut it up yourself. Same thing when it comes to proteins and shopping wisely. Okay. Check sell by dates. When and if you must eat canned meats, make sure you're choosing the healthier types of canned meats, such as your tunas, your sardines, those kind of things, instead of your canned processed meats like your Vienna sausages, your spams, that kind of thing. Always the less processed, the better when it comes to really any food that we've spoken about so far. Okay. Next week, we will be talking about the micronutrients by starting vitamins. So, next week, chapter 8 is vitamins. And as always, reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns.